Good morning. It really is my pleasure to kick off today, the third and final day of Inspire 2017. We come together at such an amazing time for our planet and for ourselves. Let's face it, we meet at a remarkable moment. When we look around the world today, in part we see growing international tensions, political instability, geopolitical challenges, even in the world of cybersecurity, literally global threats. And yet, at the same time, literally, hope is all around us. You see it, perhaps more than anything else, in the customers that all of us together have the opportunity to work with. And so I wanted to take a few minutes as we start this third day to step back and think about the opportunities and the responsibilities and challenges that we can address together as a community. One of the things that I've had the opportunity to learn more about the last year is this: every customer has a story. Every customer has an opportunity. And I think we can draw our inspiration from the people we serve, the customers of the world. I wanted to start by sharing one story about one customer that has inspired me in the past year. Now, when you think about it, one thing's sort of obvious. Every customer, every business always starts the same way, with a founder or a group of founders. In this case, I want to share the story of a man who was a founder over 130 years ago. His name was Warren Johnson. He was born in the Midwest in the United States on a poor farm in western Wisconsin in the 1840s. He did not get the benefit of any real formal education, but he had a curious mind. In fact, he had a growth mindset long before anyone coined that term. He nurtured it. He grew up. He became a teacher and a professor in Wisconsin at what was called the state's normal school, what is now in Whitewater, part of the University of Wisconsin system. Now, anybody who grew up in Wisconsin, as in fact I did, knows one thing. In the winter, it is cold. So of course, when he was teaching in this building in the 1870s and 80s, it was a challenge just to keep the students warm. They had a furnace in the basement, and there was a janitor who literally had to walk the halls. He had to stick his head into each room. He had to interrupt the teaching. He had to ask, is it too hot? Is it too cold? And he would go back to the basement to adjust the temperature for that room. Warren Johnson recognized that this was a human problem that could be solved with technology. So on July 24th, 1883, he filed the patent for his invention, the first electrical thermostat in the world. He not only invented a product, he took that invention and he built a business that was named after him, called Johnson Controls. He moved to Milwaukee, and by 1908, his thermostats, Johnson Controls thermostats, were powering the tallest building in the world, the Singer Building in New York, a building that was made possible because of technological advances in steel, because of the elevator, and because of the 1,200 thermostats from Johnson Controls that went into that building. Now, this is not only a story about innovation, it's also a story about resilience. And I think that's equally important for the times in which we live, because the headlines over 132 years, by definition, cannot always be positive. In the 90s, in the last decade, people who opened the newspaper were more likely to read that Johnson Controls was having to shut down factories, to lay off workers. But it is a resilient company that I think is an inspirational story. And it speaks to all of us here. Because in a new decade, in this decade, Johnson Controls has used digital technology to transform itself. Working out of this building in Milwaukee, Wisconsin, it has created not just a technology, but a service. It not only builds the large chiller units that control the heat and the air conditioning in the buildings and schools and hospitals of this country and others, it now builds these devices with IoT sensors, and Johnson Controls doesn't just deliver them, they continue to operate them. They serve 40,000 buildings around the country. They address one of the greatest environmental challenges of our time, because 40% of all electricity in the world is consumed by buildings. They have reinvented themselves, and in so doing, they show us how we can work with every customer to follow a similar journey, as you can see when you hear it in their own words.
The key to prospering in this day of digital transformation is really focusing on your core. And at Johnson Controls, we wake up every day trying to figure out the most cost-effective ways of delivering higher performance buildings.
Johnson Controls' story has been a long one. We're 132 years old. We've gone all the way from when Warren invented the thermostat to an energy crisis back in the 70s to now concerns about urban sustainability and climate change. We learned through each of these investments that there are always great opportunities for people who can adapt.
I love what I do. I started out in 1977 selling service on air conditioning equipment. I think about technology as a way to take something that's good and make it better.
Making buildings smarter, making them more energy efficient, those goals and objectives, they haven't changed. The technology has advanced greatly.
Today, I'm responsible for our connected chiller program. In the past, data was gathered on a clipboard, and our technician would have to analyze these handwritten notes.
What we've done is we've provided connectivity to the chiller and the ability to put that data up in the cloud.
Microsoft has been an incredible partner for us in our transformation journey, providing us the core technology foundation around cloud and some of the enterprise solutions, which allows us to leverage data coming from buildings to create new value for our customers.
We're doing things today that I really couldn't have dreamed of 34 years ago.
Everything is digital at this point, and so you've got to have some degree of digital acumen. It's easy to pine for the good old days, but we have to have systems and training that allow our employees to grow and evolve regardless of where you are in your career. Quality employment, quality jobs, skilled labor are incredibly important issues for us.
To me, it's been lifelong learning, and it's all about helping our company thrive and compete and survive. If we don't, another competitor will.
The things that we're working on are really going to form the foundation for the world that our children and our grandchildren and ensuing generations are going to live in. Technology for technology's sake isn't really particularly valuable. It's really in applying the technology to solve human problems is where you unlock the value.
I think that's so well put. Now, I'll admit, I often get excited about technology for technology's own sake. I get excited about the newest thing, but that's not what we do. That's not our mission. As Johnson Controls, or JCI, has shown, our role is to help people develop technology that solves human problems, that helps them achieve more. And what this says to us today is that as we go forward, every business has a digital opportunity. And that means, in turn, that we, as a community, have an enormous responsibility. It's our responsibility to help secure our customers' digital estate. There are two big priorities for us together in the year ahead. I want to talk about each. It begins with privacy. Privacy has been growing in importance. I've talked about it on this stage each of the last couple of years. We've been developing and adopting and implementing as a company a series of cloud principles around security and privacy and compliance and transparency. Principles that together add up, we hope, to trust, to a future where people know that they will be able to preserve the protections they've traditionally had for information on paper as they move their data to the cloud. But the next 12 months are not going to be a typical year, in part for one specific reason. On May the 25th of next year, 2018, in Europe, the General Data Protection Regulation, or GDPR, will take effect. This is important, obviously, if your business is in Europe. It is important if you have any employees in Europe. It is important if you have customers in Europe. In fact, it's actually probably important even if you've only just heard of Europe, because this is spreading around the world. It means a number of things. It means that there are going to be enhanced privacy rights for people, and that's a good thing. It means that we and the entire industry are going to have a greater duty to protect data. And by the way, for our customers and ourselves, there will be greater penalties if we fall short. That's why we're so focused on this at Microsoft. It's why we have over 300 engineers focused on end-to-end re-engineering and the creation of a single data privacy architecture for the entire company. It's why we've amended our contracts so our customers know they can count on us. It's why we're undertaking proactive regulatory advocacy. And it's why we need your help, as do our customers. It's why we published just 2 days ago a new guide that you can use to work with our customers to help them implement the GDPR. You can use this new assessment tool and meet with customers and help them discover the personal data they have, learn how to manage it better, what they need to do to protect it, and what they'll have to report if particular things ever go wrong. There's an enormous opportunity for everyone in this room to provide additional help to our customers. I hope you'll go to the Microsoft Trust Center where you can find all of this and learn more. But the next year is not about privacy alone. If anything, there's an equal or even bigger challenge when it comes to the issues of cybersecurity. And this, in fact, is connected to the privacy issue because, after all, there is no privacy without security. Even if customers do a great job of implementing their own policies and business processes, if they suffer a cybersecurity intrusion and that data goes out the door, they have a problem. And unfortunately, as we read the headlines of the world, we know that the world has a problem. We see it in the number of compromises that are taking place. We see it in the cost that this is increasing for customers. We see it in the way the cybersecurity threat has evolved over the last few years. What started a decade and a half ago as a sense that there were some teenagers in the basement hacking their way has moved so far beyond that. It has morphed into sophisticated international organized crime, and worse, sophisticated nation-state attacks. We see that in the headlines of the last few months. We see that in the attacks that have taken place. We see it in the nation-state threats to which it has led. We see it even in the last 2 weeks in an attack on a country that then spread around the world. One thing has unfortunately become all too clear. Cyberspace is the new battlefield. And when you think about all of these recent incidents, this is a wake-up call. It's a wake-up call to all of us. It's a wake-up call to Microsoft and every partner and every customer, and we hope to every government in the world. As a company at Microsoft, we've launched a 4-part approach to strengthen cybersecurity. It starts at the top with our platform itself, but it includes intelligence and the use of data. the critical role of our ability to all work together as a partner community, and the advocacy for new policies. It really does start, of course, with engineering, the engineering of increasingly sophisticated security features in 4 areas. The first is identity and access management. So only the right people are getting the access to the right network resources at the right time. But we have to protect not only the network, but information. So we have new technology tools to protect documents and information. We know that threats will persist, so we have real-time protection against those threats. And finally, it requires end-to-end security management. One thing we've all learned in the last year, I think together, is this: no matter how strong the security protections become, this problem will persist for a very simple reason. It's called human nature. What we've learned is that 90% of all security intrusions start the same way, with an email and a link that takes somebody to a harmful website. This is not likely to go away for a very simple reason. As somebody said at a conference I spoke at earlier this year, every company has at least one employee who will click on anything. That is pretty hard to protect against. But that's what we're working to do. If you look at our new features, like two-factor authentication, I think this is probably commonly understood by everybody in this room, but interestingly, there are so many customers that don't yet have this implemented. They haven't yet implemented the kinds of TFA that we put in our products, so that when somebody goes to a site and enters their name and password, they're asked to authenticate themselves, either with themselves, a fingerprint, a facial scan, as we have in Windows Hello, or a device they may have in their pocket, like a phone. A device that then gives them a second code they need to enter in so they can then access the site they want to visit. This advance alone would help so many customers become so much more secure. We've also advanced in the area of information protection. Office 365 recognizes, for example, a US Social Security number as soon as it's typed in. It marks the document as confidential. It enables people to use the security features in Word, in this instance, to protect the information. And perhaps most important, when it comes to Outlook and what we're doing, we're using real-time data so that when there are links to malicious sites and that employee clicks on it, they don't actually get to go there. We stop and tell them that this is a malicious site. This requires not just great engineering, it requires our operations at a global scale. It requires our ability to use our over 100 data centers, operating as 38 cloud regions around the world. It requires the constant use and assessment of data. And believe me, this is where we benefit as a company and as a community from having some of the world's largest and best data. Data that comes from having 1 billion Windows-connected devices, that comes from scanning for malware purposes 400 billion emails each and every month. It creates a wide window on data around the world. And we're able to put that data to use because of something else that we have, I think almost uniquely. It is 3,500 of the best security professionals in the world working at Microsoft. What we've found as we've found ourselves on the new battlefield is that we've also become the first responders to cybersecurity threats. And we put new energy, new focus, and new resources into responding faster and better than ever before. We have inside the company what I think is a unique three-part partnership. It starts with our Threat Intelligence Center, the Microsoft Threat Intelligence Center, where we have security professionals monitoring these data streams and identifying new threats. As they find them, they pass this information to our Cyber Defense Operations Center, or CDOC, so we can work with customers who have had an attack to help them. as our engineers were doing in the Petya attack, literally around the clock, around the world. But we have a third part of the partnership as well, a partnership that you will not find, a resource that you will not see in any other company in our industry, and that's our Digital Crimes Unit, or DCU. We are literally using the law to stand up for people's rights and to protect them against cybersecurity attacks. As we did 2 weeks ago when we went forward to prosecute 2 individuals in the United Kingdom, as we're doing on an even bigger scale in the nation-state arena. Just since last July, we have pursued multiple actions in court that has enabled us to move control of domains that are being used for nation-state attacks against customers, and we've been able to secure them and get that information to go work with customers literally on 6 continents. We are making some important progress, but there is one thing that is also clear: we're so far away from declaring victory. There is so much more work to do. We recognize as a company that we have the first responsibility to keep our customers safe. But it's also become so clear in these recent incidents that cybersecurity is a shared responsibility. It is a responsibility that all of us in this arena share together. It is a responsibility that all of us share with our customers, because so much turns on the ability of customers to implement such important security fundamentals. Fundamentals like two-factor authentication, fundamentals like the updating and patching of systems, fundamentals like whitelisting applications that should be downloaded, fundamentals like using our latest software. One of the things that the WannaCry attack showed was that Windows XP is enormously vulnerable in ways that are impossible to change. It was a great product in its time, but that time has come and gone. Windows XP was created and launched 16 years ago. That's 6 years before the iPhone. It is 2 months before the iPod. Is there anybody in this arena who is carrying around an iPod? I don't think so. You would look at it and go, why? What the heck? In the same way, we need to help our customers understand, don't rely on Windows XP. That's like trying to shoot down an airplane with a 19th century cannon. We need modern technology to deal with current threats. There is such an important need for all of you to help so we can serve our customers. If you don't yet have a cybersecurity practice as part of your business, I hope you'll ask, why not? We've published for all of you a security practice development playbook, a guide to help you develop a business that, believe me, will not only serve your business, but more importantly, it will serve our customers. It will give them what they need for these modern threats. We all need to recognize together that cybersecurity is a cause. It's a cause that is global in scope and paramount in importance, and unfortunately, it is a sobering time. It's a sobering time when you think about this. After World War II, 7 decades ago, all the governments of the world got together and they agreed, they undertook an obligation legally that they would protect civilians in times of war. But look at the headlines of the last year. We are seeing governments attacking civilians in times of peace. That is what countries are doing when they are hacking and attacking candidates who run for office or political parties engaged in that process. They are attacking the fundamental civilian infrastructures of our democracies. That is what governments are doing when they're attacking hospitals and the electrical grid and the water system. They are attacking the fundamental civilian infrastructures of our societies and our very lives. We need to do better. We can take inspiration and learn from what the governments of the world learned from World War II, when they came together in Geneva in 1949 and adopted what was called the Fourth Geneva Convention, a convention that pledged that they would not attack civilians in times of war. What we need today is a new Geneva Convention. We need a digital Geneva Convention that will call on the governments of the world to pledge that they will not attack civilians through cybersecurity measures in times of peace. That is what we're calling for. And as we ask governments to act, as we encourage them to act, we have the opportunity as an industry to act as well. To come together with our own accord, a tech sector accord that enables us to work together more effectively as an industry, that asks all of us as a global community and as global leaders to stand together behind a straightforward pledge, that the world can count on us to stand up for a principle of 100% defense, 0% offense. We will not help any government attack any customer anywhere. To the contrary, we will help defend every customer everywhere. We have a message that we need your help to deliver. In every country around the world, to every government around the world, even at a time of rising nationalism and growing populism, even at a time when some countries are looking more inward, the world as a whole, and every country will be best served if they recognize that we will best serve the world as an industry, if they look to us as a neutral digital Switzerland. That is the role that we can play. And as you can see, the people from Switzerland understand this very well. But we can do so much more good for people. When you think about these issues of privacy, when you think about these questions of trust, it is so clear that our responsibility has risen. It is a responsibility that is high because building trust for our customers and with all stakeholders around the world is frankly indispensable for our ability to fulfill our mission as a company and a community. Not only is the importance of trust greater than ever, but our responsibilities are more diverse than ever. Technology touches people's lives, it affects economies, it changes societies in ways that none of us would have even quite imagined a couple of decades ago. We need to stand up and work together as a community and an industry to ensure that we can move technology forward without leaving people behind. We need to build on what we're doing to sustain the world's trust. We need to help more people get connected. As we did yesterday here in Washington, D.C., launching a new national rural broadband strategy, launching the new Microsoft Rural Airband Initiative to bring to broadband connectivity the 23.4 million Americans in the United States that live in rural communities and lack this connectivity today. That is something we're committed to here and then around the world. We appreciate that broadband connectivity is a necessity of life. And we also recognize this, that while governments may waver, our support for sustainability remains steadfast. As a company, we are all into the work that it takes to build a more sustainable planet. We want to build a sustainable planet. We want to address the needs of people. With your help, if we can work together as a community, we can help create a better world. Thank you very much.